He was raised on rock and roll and Sinatra. He loves whiskey and dirty martinis. In grade school, he once swallowed a live worm to impress a young lady. She was not impressed, and he got sick. This is Rock on the Rocks with E.T.
Hey, welcome to Rock on the Rocks. Today's guest is photographer Timothy White and bartender and my cousin Mitch from Philly. Pretty excited for this one, Chris, I got to tell you.
Can I be cousin Chris from St. Louis? Cousin Mitch seems like such a fun dude, and I'm jealous, and I know we do the other show together. We spend a lot of time together, but I don't feel like I've eclipsed a cousin moniker, so I'm going to need you to start calling me cousin Chris.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Uncle Chris from St. Louis?
Kind of weird. I don't want you to call me Uncle Chris. Yeah. Brother Chris. How about that?
Brother Chris from St. Louis.
Yes.
Yeah, no, this will be fun. Cousin Mitch from Philly is always great, and Timothy White. I actually met him around the same time I met Henry Diltz, who is also going to be on the show, and Timothy owns the Marston Hotel Gallery, which represents hundreds of rock photographers. So yeah, right. So you walk into that store and you're like, oh my God, I want every single thing here. And it's like, it's every favorite picture you've ever seen. And I didn't realize this at first, but Timothy took a lot of pictures. When I first met him, I knew him as a photographer for like Hollywood, for actors and sets and PR stuff and all that. And then I realized he has all these amazing rock photographs. So I can't wait to hear some of the stories behind all that. And he's a cool dude. He's just like, you know, he goes out in the desert on his motorcycle and does these photo shoots. And it's just like crazy town, what he's experienced in his life.
Now, will you be optioning his story as a docuseries in the
I should.
Sounds like he needs one. It's amazing.
He has one of those just cool lives where he's just the guy. And it's, I don't know, man. I think it's one of the, you know, when you always hear like your dad or someone that gives advice, like find something you love to do and it's never a day of work in your life. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I feel like he did find that. I feel like.
No, that's a lot of the people you get to talk to on here. They embody that, but there's a lot of guys we both probably went to high school with that did their own thing too, but they're not on Rock on the Rocks talking about their successes. So it's a weird mix of, hey, I'm going to do what I want, but I'm also going to have a method to my perceived madness. Yeah,
it's a good point. However, I don't know that when you venture out to say, hey, I'm going to go beat down a different path, I don't know that you can ever fully predict that it's going to work out or not work out. And, if you, I'm not saying being a lawyer is easy, but if you go to law school and do well and you get a gig and you work hard, you probably will work your way up in a firm or on your own firm or something like that. If you work hard in something that's not as, say, stable of an industry, there's no guarantee that hard work is what's going to pay off. I mean, there's no guarantees in life, period, but I feel like there's certain paths
of course
that might be a little bit more, paved. And when you go down the unpaved path, you can hustle all you want, but, it's no guarantee. So for someone like Timothy to do it and do it so well for so long and so with such success, it's cool. And then you have all these great stories. I mean, I guess you always have the stories, but it's nice to not, be telling them from, somewhere you'd rather not be living.
Well, I think you've paved a great path for today's show. I'm excited to see it.
Exactly. Yeah, me too. I'm excited to talk to him. I mean, I always love talking to him, but it'd be cool to hear the stories behind some of these photos. So, well, first we get to bring out Cousin Mitch from Philly. He's going to make a drink he invented years ago. He probably bartended maybe even longer than I did. And he's just a great guy. He's
sure.
Well, when you have a family and you have cousins and sisters and brothers and mothers and fathers, and then people come into your family, it's always a crapshoot. You never know if you're like,
so true.
Like, I got to go hang out with my cousin and her husband. Oh boy. But then you get a guy like Cousin Mitch from Philly, and you want to keep him around forever. So let's bring him out. All right. Welcome to the show, cousin Mitch from Philly. How are you?
Doing good.
Nice.
Doing a lot of shoveling around here.
Yeah, you got a lot of snow there. Yeah, I told everyone beforehand, before I brought you on, you are my actual cousin, Mitch from Philly, and spent 25 years behind bars, the drinks pouring kind. But, besides all that stuff in common, you're also a huge music fan. So Mitchell, once he found out I was trying to learn how to play guitar, I don't know if he did it for inspiration or to tell me I suck, but he'll send me these videos of him rocking out, and I'm like, great. Now I feel really bad about myself because I can't do any of that. So I appreciate that. Thanks for making me feel good.
It's those facial expressions, right?
Yeah, that's good. Guitar faces are good. They should make a website for that.
Right.
Now, I know I'm a huge obsessed Zeppelin fan, and I feel like your version of that is The Who. Would that be accurate?
Correct. Sure. They're the reason why I became a drummer.
Did Keith Moon?
Well, what happened with Keith Moon was when I, was thinking about drumming, he had just passed away. And we had tickets to a concert, I guess back in 78, I believe it was, 77 or 78. And that's when they were first touring without him. And I specifically went to that concert to see how The Who played their music because I loved the way he drummed, sloppy stuff and all that. And I just wanted to see, although it wasn't going to be him, it was going to be their music. So right. I stood in line for them for, 14 hours back when general admission was something they had at the stadiums. Used to buy tickets. I think we went out there at, 4 a.m, took the day off of school, and stood there. But yeah, that was my, I guess I was about 14 years old at the time. And that was my inspiration to playing the drums. Although I could have chose somebody else.
Now, you're 14 years old and you took a day off of school. So you didn't have a note to leave school. You just skipped school is what you're saying.
We didn't use notes back then. We took the punishment.
Right. I got it. You asked for forgiveness, not permission. I see. Sure. I like that. Yeah. So, and then you saw The Who without Keith Moon, but it still was like the friggin' Who, and you're like, I want to do that. Sure.
Although, watching Kenny Jones play at the time was a whole lot different than watching what I saw on videos of Keith Moon. And, I love the way Keith Moon played. Unfortunately, following the way he played was not the best step that I ever did when it came to learning drums. Because, number one, it got me away from my lessons and more into rock and roll than to pay attention to what I was being taught.
Right.
And, sometimes I'd prefer to put Who's Next on and play that album under headphones and take a drum lesson.
Right.
And that was probably a mistake I made. Although I did make it to a band eventually, I still, my drumming expertise I was sloppy and still am sloppy at it.
Hey, it's all good. Look, everyone's got their own style, right? Not everyone is classically trained or jazz drummer and everything's perfect. And, you could say that about a lot of the great drummers, that they weren't, their style was their own and it made what they did great. So I wouldn't
Every great one had his own style, right?
Yeah. And that made them more unique. If everyone just played by the rules, then it would all sound the same.
Yeah, it's like, you look at the Rolling Stones. Come on. The drummer's the same beat to every song almost, Right. It's like he gets no credit for being he's a great metronome. That's what I call him, a human metronome. That's all you had to be for Keith Richards and the boys, Just keep the beat, let them guys do what they do.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot to be said about that. People say that about Ringo too.
Ringo's one of the best.
Yeah. And he takes a lot of heat, but not from his bandmates.
Nah, not at all. Never a bad word about him ever.
Yep.
It's unusual.
Now, the drink you have, this is something you created a while ago under, this is like a riff on your own drink.
Sure, right? Pretty much.
Okay, so this was originally called the what?
It's called the Mother-in-Law.
Now, was that named after my aunt, my mom's sister?
Kind of. It kind of was invented just about the time I met her.
Okay.
Although I was not aware she was going to be my mother-in-law at the time. Although I saw it coming, That's fair. That's fair.
So what is the drink you're going to make for us?
Well, I basically just made what it's called as a cousin-in-law, which is basically close to the same thing. I'm changing the main ingredients from what I use vodka and amaretto. Now I'm using Jack Daniels and amaretto with a little bit of cranberry juice, and I'm calling it the cousin-in-law.
I like it. Yeah. Very appropriate.
And that's for you, E.T. You can use that anytime you want.
I appreciate it. I think I will.
I do a shot and a half of Jack Daniels. Free pour, you notice. And I drop a little amaretto in there. And I just want to top it off with just a little bit of cranberry. And that's just for health reasons only.
Nice.
There you go. Nice. You mix that around. You only need one. Very good. That's it. That's the cousin-in-law.
I like it. Now, there's a lot of debate. I did a whiskey tasting not too long ago with a whiskey society in Philly and virtual tasting, and cheesesteaks came up. So I feel remiss to not ask you your favorite Philly cheesesteak.
Well, it's not one of the boys you're going to know about. No, you hear about across the country, the Pats, the Genos, and the Steves and stuff like that. I basically go to the, as far as
hold on, time out. Time out a second. Don't pull my Philly card so quick. I did born and raised there, and I am a proud member of the Facebook group Cheesesteak Gurus. So I keep up with what's happening. So let me hear it. What's the cousin Mitch favorite Philly cheesesteak?
The best Philly cheesesteaks I have would have to be. I hate to say this because I go to a place called Cosme's at 8th and Dickinson to get it.
Okay.
I get my cheesesteaks there. I mean, it's it's not the place everybody knows about. It's a corner deli, and that's where I get my cheesesteaks. But if I have to go to the big guys, I prefer to go to Del Sandro's when I can get there. If you're familiar with that place down in Roxborough, that's the place I like to go. That's where I take people from out of town. They want to go to Pat's and the other ones. That's great and all, but this is the place I would take everybody. It's a little bit of a wait when you get there. Their speed is not that great, but it's worth it. Absolutely worth it.
Yeah, no, that's a big cheesesteak. My mother, Jude, as you know well, a couple trips ago, we Ubered there and then walked home by the river 7 miles to work off that cheesesteak.
That's what you got to do.
The place across the street, I hear some people say is better.
Yep. But it's not called Del Sandro's. That's the problem.
Yeah.
A lot of times people go to Philly cheesesteaks place just for be where the name is, which is a mistake.
I hear. Look, I've been to Pat and Geno's all of once in all my years. I feel like that's just a TV spot. That's not the.
Yeah. You go there. You have your cheesesteak. You lean over the curb. You let it drip into the drain system so it doesn't get all over you. And on the ride home, you're rubbing your stomach. That was delicious.
Right. Now I do take a lot of heat for saying that my favorite Philly cheesesteak is in New Jersey, because I'm a White House guy.
Oh, sure. And sure.
I just love those rolls. I know it's different, a little different than the Philly roll.
Yeah, trying to think the place we go down in Ventnor, New Jersey. What's the place we always used to get the sandwiches from down?
Dino's.
What is it?
Dino's, yeah,
right. I was more of a tuna guy at that place, but every now and then I got the cheesesteaks there. You're right, it's all about the roll. It's all about the roll in any sandwich.
Yeah.
Me, I like the city roll, basically.
Yeah, it's good. I like them both, but I guess I spent more time living on the White House and Dino's and Sacco Subs than I did. Jim's was my spot growing up, but I think that original owner had to let go of the place, and the guys that took it over, I don't think they're keeping up the tradition.
You know what? You don't hear about Jim's too much anymore.
No, the last time I went, I wasn't going to not eat it, but it wasn't what I remembered. I hate to say it, because I loved it. Look, man, I do really appreciate you coming on.
No problem.
Rock on the Rocks. I miss seeing you. I can't wait till I can travel again and come home and maybe go to get that cheesesteak with you at Del Sandro's.
We'll do it.
Or your
I'll show
local
you.
spot.
And I'll share a couple of my new riffs that I put together for you, you know?
Well, hopefully by the time I get back there, I'll know something, right? I'll know something more than happy birthday. But anyway, cheers. Cousin Mitch from Philly. I miss you, man.
Yeah. You got it, man. Talk to you soon.
All right. Take care.
See you.
All right. Welcome to Rock on the Rocks, Timothy. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So I was telling everyone before you jumped on, I met you at the Sunset Marquee where your gallery is. And I think I met you around the time I met Henry Diltz and his buddy Howard, and it's just kind of all and some people that run your gallery. But in a nutshell, you own the Marston Hotel Gallery, which represents just about every rock photographer who ever took a picture of a rock star.
With Henry and
yes.
and 2 other partners. But yes, we represent 125 photographers. It's really everybody who's anybody in the music space.
That's amazing. Yeah, I mean,
you can go to our website and get lost for a week. You know, just look at.
I do. I do, because you click on someone, and like even Henry, who a lot of his work is really iconic, but then when you click on his page, like, oh, I didn't know he took that and that and that and that, and then you start going down these rabbit holes, and not just and then people maybe I never even heard of. You just see a JPEG on there, and then you click, and you're like, wow, I want all of these pictures.
You also go through sort of the rabbit holes of your life because, you know, music's so important to us all. It somehow resonates emotionally on so many different levels. It's, you know, the first time I got laid, that was that song. It was the first time I did this. It was the song at my wedding. It was, you know, it was my first record I bought or whatever it is. And it holds something special for you. And then you take this stroll through the collection of all these photographers who have done all this great work, who've had all these great experiences with these musicians, and it all just comes back to you and it resonates. It's like, oh my God, you know, I'm such a Who fan. Look at those pictures of Roger Daltrey when he was 17 or whatever.
Right. I agree. Photos really do capture time, and, you know, much like music. And I think all art forms do that, but songs and photos they're quicker and more instant. So you don't have to read a 700-page novel. You know, it's right there. You see the picture and you're like, wow, that's the Sunset Strip in 77. What was that like? You know, and you have read about it or heard an interview about it, and then you see it in a photo and you're like, that's pretty cool.
I mean, to that point, like, think about, and given our name too, it's a good reference, but I mean, think about Jim Morrison and think about the words that he wrote, the time that he lived in, where they hung out, what they did, how they built their careers, the band on the Sunset Strip, the music that came out of it, how it affected all of our lives, how it continues to affect all of our lives. I mean, that's a lot. There's a lot going on there. And then that image is so iconic, and, you know, you want that sexy lizard of a guy, you know, hanging on your wall. And so much, you know.
For sure. And what else is cool is, you know, depending on how old you are, you live through it or you live through it right after. But now there are people discovering it for the first time, and they have, luckily, these archives that people like you and Henry and all the other photographers at your gallery have captured for them. So they don't have to wait for the magazine to come out next month with a picture of Jim Marston. It's all those photos are already there. So it's, you know, I guess in a way that it's that generation where everything's instant. They have it all, where we would have to wait for Rolling Stone to come out and see the picture. And then
it's true. And wait for, you know, that next album cover, which was always like a piece of art. Each album cover really was a piece of art in itself. But the advantage of today is, then you saw that one album cover that was so important, it was so beautiful, and you had to wait for that, and it was really great. But in today's world, you can go out and look at, and through our gallery too, not just look at that album cover, but see all of the outtakes from it and see all the other opportunities and all the other photographers shot the same band at the same time. And so, you know, the access that we have in front of us is sort of overwhelming relative to the quantity of it, but it really gives you a sense of history and allows people to be inspired by that and move forward. And I think in the artists themselves, musicians are so inspired by the imagery from certain periods, and it makes you want to look deeper, makes you want to listen deeper, and at stuff you hadn't seen or listened to before.
No, for sure. Now, I'm always curious, like before you came on, we were talking about people that live cool and unique lives. And to me, you're one of them because you picked up a camera and you've had a career your whole life. So that's, you can go to school for that, and maybe you did. We'll find out in a second, but it's fascinating that you've been able to sustain an entire life, I think, doing what you love, which not a lot of people can say.
Yeah, I mean, I've never really looked at it as anything but my life. I often joke that I never had a job in my life before. It's just sort of what I do, and even though I built a career in photography, that was even surprising to me as to the level it got to. It's still just part of what I do, part of my life, and I've incorporated my life into it, and it into my life. That makes any sense.
Yeah, no, for sure. But what was the first time you're like, this is what I want to do? Like, when did you decide I'm not just taking pictures for fun? I can do this.
I think it had more to do with just life trajectory. And, when I went to high school, in 1970, it was, and because I had older siblings, I kind of grew up from the Beatles into the 70s. Sort of that was my developmental period into the teenage years. And it was always about sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Or certainly it was music for sure before it got into sex and drugs. But right. I think what that did for me was realize that I wasn't taking on the family business. I wasn't going to law school. That's not who I was. And it wasn't what I was going to do. And I think when I found photography, and it wasn't from like a journalistic standpoint, it was more about, wow, album covers, wow, music, wow, this is something that seems right to me. And it also was about a lifestyle that was attractive to me. And it was sort of alternative in a way. And then it evolved. So at some point, the camera represented that for me. And I did go to art school actually and studied photography. But that was a different kind of education. And then when I got out and moved into New York and opened up a studio and started to really see where I fit in, it was about music, and right. Started going after that work, and one thing led to another.
Gotcha. Is there, because that's a pretty good era to be discovering all those things, especially being in New York. Do you remember like that? Was there ever a show that kind of stands out as a very early show where it just kind of blew you away and you're like, this is the world I want to be a part of?
Fuck yeah. I'll never forget. I went to a bunch of them, I went to the last show of the Fillmore East with the Allman Brothers performing. And I did some Orange Sunshine with some friends. I was drinking my brains out. The show started at 11:30 at night. And then we came out at the next morning at like 6, 7 in the morning. And it was just the most unbelievable jam you could possibly imagine. Wow. And that was like Eric, and I'm, 15 or 16 or whatever it was, but
that's crazy. I could see how you would want to keep looking for that, once you taste.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, like, it's. I would think it would be really hard to experience something like that and then not want to keep finding those moments.
Yeah, and then it became about, okay, I've graduated college and now it's career. Like what am I doing? Where am I going with this? And then, there became a sort of a benchmark. There was a bar in commercial photography that I wanted to get to, and that was like Rolling Stone, and different magazines and that sort of thing. And so getting those first assignments for Rolling Stone put me in a certain place, getting certain album covers, little pieces at a time that build your career. And then one thing leads to another, and people start to find out about you, and you start to realize what you're doing, and you start to say, oh, I'm developing a vision here. I'm developing a point of view. And as you put that together, other people are recognizing it, and your career grows, and it's one thing after another. And I think to your point, earlier when you guys were talking before I came on, it was about, your life trajectory and how it happens. And, you no matter how much you plan, it doesn't matter. It's one thing right. leads to other, and it could take you down another path, and it's decisions you make. You know, you come to crossroads a lot in your life, and the decisions you make affect it one way or the other.
Right. No, for sure. It's a good point, because a lot of times but I think it's easier to stick with, that sounds like something I know, I'll go that way. But had you just said, I'll dip my toe in water I've never been in, what could possibly, what your life could become. And I think people like you that say, hey, I'm going to try something different. And the fact that it worked out for you, what a great thing that you did.
Yeah, but I think it works out because you make those decisions. It's like, right. I'm not afraid of risk. I'm not afraid of going in the dark cave, because I know there's going to be something there, and life is short. And
no, but I think that's a really good outlook. I feel like a lot of people don't have that, so they don't have the experience.
But without the risk, you don't get the reward. Do you want to be this philosophical? You want me to be goofy and talk about rock and roll?
We'll get there. But look, man, you have a cool perspective, and it shows in who you are. I mean, I've been lucky to be part of some of the events that you create around your gallery. I mean, to be part of Woodstock 50 or Keith Richards events and things like that, and just see what you create around what people and yourself have created. It's wild, because it still resonates. It's like when you did the Woodstock 50 and I was there.
You were involved.
Yes, small part, but that was 50 friggin' years ago, and the place was a zoo. Everybody still is holding on and wanting what was the good parts about what that all represented. And 50 years later, it still seemed like relevant. The message, a lot of the messaging and a lot of the vibe and a lot of the sentiment is still here. And it's moments like that bring it out. So it's cool that you can talk a little philosophy before we get into some rock and roll, but because it's who you are.
Well, you need to play it forward, right? So those were important moments. That was a moment in time. I mean, what the Woodstock generation represented was really important. I mean, the history of pop culture, if you think about it, and the history of music and how it evolved and how it got to that point, and how that point in time was a turning point for youth culture, for politics, for pop culture, in so many ways. We kind of had it all. That's what Woodstock represented. We fucked it up afterward. We kind of, youth culture kind of had it by the balls, and Woodstock was the epitome of it. It represented it. We had the power. Jim Morrison, back to that. I'm going to quote my friend Jeff Jampol, who represents the Doors, and who often quotes Jim Morrison. But we had the numbers. We had the numbers. We believed in it at that moment. It was
right.
This. It went from the hippies into all of this hope and all of this sense of what possibilities were there, and then drugs and other things and politics and whatever kind of killed it. And then the rest is history. We got into money, and I mean, it just evolved into something else. But there was a moment there that was very real and very idealistic and utopian, and that feeling can play forward, and anniversaries allow for that. And certainly, I'll just take it back to the gallery. The pictures in the gallery represent that,
Right. No, for sure. I agree. And I want to get to some of your pictures. And the first one I want to hear about, because it represents a different, I wouldn't say beginning, but close to a beginning of a whole other culture that has a voice and has really become powerful in all communities. And this picture that you took of Jay-Z is so young for, I don't think when I saw that, if I didn't see the title, I would know who that was, because he's so much younger than than I think of him now. So, I mean, I just passed it and I'm like, oh shit, that's Jay-Z. But this feels like a pretty while ago that you took this.
1988. It was before his first record. I was shooting another rap artist by the name of Jazzo, and I had a studio, and I lived in the same place in a loft in New York City, and I was shooting on my roof, and I was shooting Jazz-O, his album cover, and this guy shows up, and his name is Jay-Z, and that's who I'm introduced to, and he's like wearing all this bling, and it was just like, and I saw those two talking, and I said, get in with some pictures, and I did some of the two of them together, and then I found out that actually Jazz-O had given Jay-Z his moniker, that he had given him the name, and that he was this kid who was writing music and was about to evolve. And then after shooting the two of them together, I was like, there's something special about you. I step aside and do some other things with you. And we ended up doing, a few hundred pictures together, frames. And I even got him to change clothes. So I got like 2 different variations on it. But the real kicker is that I forgot that I had shot him. That it was part in my database of my files. It was part of Jazz-O. It wasn't Jay-Z. And so here we are, how many years later? And he's a mogul, and I'm looking at this going, I think I've shot this guy. And I went back into my file, figured out that it was part of the Jazz-O shoot, and saw the pictures and immediately printed one up and framed one and hung it in the gallery at the Sunset Marquee in West Hollywood. And that was on a Friday, and on Sunday morning, I got a call from my gallery director and said, Jay-Z just bought your photo. And I was like, what? And it was cool. And then my phone blew up the rest of the day, and Rock Nation was calling me because it was as much a part of his history and his legacy as it has become mine in a way. And they'd forgotten about it as well. So it was, oh my God, where did this come from? Oh yeah. And we want to use it. And then they ended up licensing it for me, from me for the 444 album that he did a couple of years ago.
That's really, see that again, like you were talking about before, you captured a moment in time that otherwise could have never happened, right? Like the other guy could have been like, I'm shooting my album cover, my buddy's here, that's it. And because you ended up changing direction a little bit, now you have this piece of history. Awesome.
I like what you just said, because it's all about moments, but I like changing direction is really something that's important to me. It's always looking past it. It's always looking around it. It's always trying to see what else is there.
That's cool. And I'll change directions right now from that picture to this one, because I don't think you get much different of genres, but I found this fascinating. Now was this when they were collaborating? Didn't they do was there a charity album for AIDS to raise money for AIDS? And they did like a duo or duet?
Yeah, called Red, White, and Blue.
Okay.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I don't know the year. Do you? It's got to be like 90, early 90.
Yeah. I don't remember either, but did that just someone put them together? Were they buddies? Do you know anything about how they got to be a pair?
What's really interesting is that just recently I recognized that obviously they were buddies. Obviously they grew up at a similar time doing similar work in New York City and experiencing each other's lives in some way or another. But they must have had and clearly had a personal relationship. But what I found through the gallery is that there's a lot of other photographs by other people of the two of them together. So clearly they had some relationship that went on, the obvious musical period that they shared.
Right.
But I had these two icons together for a day. I remember shooting it. We were shooting it in Jersey City, and we were out on the street doing stuff. And this was a courthouse in Jersey City. And I was like, "Can I get you guys inside?" And it just also worked out that I asked them to change and what do you want me to wear? And I was like, "Well, Iggy, what you're wearing is like perfect." It was this like see-through lace gauzy kind of top, and Debbie went in and had a similar top with a jacket on. And I don't know, just it's me making a picture out of nothing, really.
Right.
Something.
Yeah. I should probably answer this question later, but I feel like because of that picture, I need to ask it now. Is it ever does it ever become a thing where you're like, holy shit, I'm shooting Deborah Harry and Iggy Pop? Or is it just, that's what you do and you're so used to it that you don't really think like that?
No, it's both. If I didn't have butterflies, I wouldn't have done this my whole life. It's exciting.
Right.
It's fun, and whether it's in the White House shooting Clinton or Obama, or shooting Harrison Ford, or shooting Iggy Pop and Debbie Harry, it's always about, holy shit, how did this kid from Jersey get here? And these people are really important. And there's something that I'm so lucky to be able to get to chronicle it for history. I've always
Right.
thought about it from a historical standpoint. Always, it's a big part of my life. All of those moments we talk about, which is that decisive moment, that fraction of a second you push the shutter. All of those moments collectively become history.
Right. No, that's cool. The next picture really is for my wife to see that I can put this in a conversation, and because she crushes hard on the lead singer of Bon Jovi. So now I can at least say that, hey man, I talked to the guy that took the picture of Jon Bon Jovi in the band. So your husband's cool too. That seems pretty early Bon Jovi. I mean, that hair is phenomenal.
Also,
did that take half the shoot, just getting the hair the right height?
There's actually a great story behind this picture. First of all, I'm a Jersey boy. This is the biggest band of that summer in 1988, titling their album New Jersey. I'm at the top of my career the beginning of the top of my career. I'm cresting in that it's 1988. I've got a cover contract with Rolling Stone. I'm doing all these great album covers. I thought I was super cool. I had hair down to here, and I've got my fancy car and whatever it was. And I get hired to shoot Bon Jovi's new album, New Jersey. And I was all over it. And it was July. And I went and scouted down. We got to do this in Jersey. We got to do it at the shore, And so I went down, scouted, and found an amusement pier in Seaside Heights, New Jersey, and talked them into letting me do this thing with Bon Jovi. And then planned the whole thing, and motorhomes, that kind of thing, set it all up to go down and do the shoot. And the word got out, on the radio or something, that we were doing it. And next thing I know, 1,000 kids showed up, and it was like a Hard Day's Night. It was people screaming. We couldn't hear each other. I had to have cops lock arms around the band to walk them from the Winnebago to the pier to the beach.
Right.
It became kind of a big deal. And
that's awesome. That's a cool experience.
Yeah, it kind of was. And it was just really exciting. I remember I had to scream to talk to the band from the camera to them to instruct them what was going on. And I shot them up on the pier, and I shot them under the pier, and yeah, they needed hair and makeup. Yeah. It was a whole different thing. But it was kind of fun. I met my ex-wife on that shoot, and it was because she was doing makeup, and the hairdresser had met the band the night before at another photo shoot, and they said, "Fire who you have. We want these two people." And so they showed up on my shoot, and it just became this whole thing. And then we ended up London and shooting the Rolling Stone cover afterward. And I got pretty close with the band.
That's awesome. That's cool. I don't know at all, but they seem pretty cool.
Good guys.
Jersey guy. I mean, I spent half my life in Jersey, so I feel like I'm a pseudo Jersey guy. But now again, I like to shake it out from the shore to this picture, which I just think is one of the coolest pictures I've seen. I really want to hear where this came from, because it seems so stark and wild. Did you just pull over to take that, or was that planned?
No, totally pulled over. Rolling Stone. No one had heard of the Sugar Cubes before. They had just broken, sort of, and no one really knew who they were. And this is Bjork, obviously. The band was the Sugar Cubes before she was solo, and they sent me with David Frick, the writer from Rolling Stone. They sent the two of us up to Iceland, and we got up there and it was like the moon, man. It was the winter Iceland. It's and then there's the outback of Iceland, which is this frozen wasteland. But it was so freaking cool. And so we rented a 4-wheel drive vehicle, a van, and we took them out, and we just started driving into this blinding snow on roads like this. I mean, it was whiteout, and just kept going. We drove for hours, and they were drinking, and everybody's whatever, and we're driving along, and pulled over to do some pictures. And you may have seen others. I've got her kneeling in the snow and stuff, but it was so cold. I remember putting a flash on, and the cord of my flash was just frozen. You could just break it in half. But I just climbed up on top of the van, and I was doing a picture of her in sort of this expansive road, and then waited for this bus to pass that came along. And as the bus passed, it blew snow all over, and it was cool. And she but
now, I've only ever seen really anything. What's that?
No, I was going to say, and like a lot of what I do, and you build a relationship, and you get to work with people more and more. So, from there, I've shot them in New York again. I did some other picture. I did an album cover. So
that's awesome. Yeah, she's always like, it seemed to really fit her. It's funny that was so early in her career because she's so artistic in all the things she does. So to have that picture just seems to fit, like, which I guess is why you said pull over. You kind of had that vibe, but it just seems to fit her vibe also.
And like Jay-Z, it's sort of like you recognize something. You see, there's something going on here, that I've got to hone in on and capture because I'm always conscious of history.
Right. Another, I guess, in the similar vein of that, just cool, earthy type of picture is this. And by the way, everyone watching, Timothy has no idea which pictures I chose of his to show. So they're probably, as they pop up, it's a little surprising for him, or at least, he doesn't know what's coming next. But this one of Shania Twain, I just thought was just wild. I'm assuming that's trees in the background that are faded out or whatever the photography term is.
It's the other side of a lake. Yeah.
Okay.
We went upstate New York to photograph her at her property. Why am I blanking out what lake it is? Big lake in upstate New York. But in any case, we went up there and we were doing some pictures and I said, this was first thing in the morning and there was this heavy fog just sitting on the water. And he said, would you get in the water and let's do a picture and take your clothes off. And I will do it tastefully. I'll get you covered up, but get you in the water. And she got in and she put boots on, she put rubber boots on and she said, you know what, we were at the end of a dock and I'm shooting at the end of the dock. And she said, send your assistant back to the garage to get some rock salt because there's leeches in this water and I'll get leeches all over me. And if you put the rock salt and throw it around me, who fucking knew, Okay. And so we did, and we threw all this rock salt in the water and then she stayed there and it was just, the light was spectacular. And that's, a very soft focused, wide open lens. So there's really shallow depth of field and the other side of the lake just went between the mist and that horizon of trees on the other side of the lake. It just became this beautiful composition. And who knows? She's probably getting bit by leeches while I was doing it.
I hope not. By the way, if you ever are hurting, like if for some odd reason your career takes a turn for the worse, I would Photoshop in Nelly the Loch Ness Monster in the very background and say, found in Shania Twain photo. That's why no one found her in Scotland. She's in upstate New York. But the another, I won't call them a hair band, but they have lots of hair. This band who's endured incredibly long career, Aerosmith. This seems what, like 90s Aerosmith?
Yeah, 90s.
I
should know all these dates, but not off the top of my head, I guess. But
it's a lot of pictures to remember every detail. But at what period Aerosmith? Because I know they've had a lot of we're the tightest band ever. We're having problems. So
yeah, this was a struggle period, I think, for them.
Okay.
This was for an album, and it was. Obviously, I do a lot of different setups over the course of a photo shoot. I'm sort of known for just pushing it. Jon Bon Jovi used to say to me, "You're like a boxer. You stick and move. Grab a shot, back off, you try something else." And so, that became sort of my MO. But so we had him in the studio. We take him up on the roof, take him outside. Have a car, have a prop, a dog, whatever you decide to use that's going to make it interesting. But yeah, I remember there were issues. There were issues between them. They weren't really close. To be honest, I don't remember the actual, the dynamic between the band or what was going on. But I do know that was a time when they were sort of coming back together, but yet it was still strained to some degree.
Yeah, because that was a big. What was that?
No, I think Joe and Steven had an issue at that time too.
Because that was the 90s was almost like a rebirth of Aerosmith for a whole new generation. Because we knew one Aerosmith and then they came out with a couple albums that really caught on. So I feel like a whole new crop of music lovers discovered Aerosmith. And their version was different from our version, right? Like what we knew. And then, but they're good for them. It's very hard to do not many bands can kind of keep.
Say how many bands can do that? Yeah.
Yeah. So they've done it for a while, which is awesome. The another band that seems to thrive always is this one, Metallica. That's a cool shot. I'm assuming that's a jail.
A real jail. It was Rolling Stone. I was in a small suburban town in Ohio, sent to go photograph them, because they were performing there, and that was the opportunity. The album just came out. They were on tour, and this is where they were, and so that was the timing that I was supposed to meet with them. Shaker Heights, Ohio.
Okay.
Real suburbia, and went there, and the plan was I'm supposed to meet them at noon or whatever, and I'm up early and freaking out. What do I do? The truth is, I could sit them on a curb in suburbia, and it would have been perfect, right? Like, it just would have been funny. It would have been a great content. But so I'm always trying to think of something cool, and what do I do? And I'm driving around frantically. I've got a couple of hours before the shoot, and I drove by the police station, and I went in. I'm like, I'm from Rolling Stone. I'm doing this band. Can I come in? Can I do pictures in here? Like, And they went, yeah, okay. And we put them in jail, and I actually did mug shots with them. I used all the police paraphernalia and stuff, and again,
that's
try
awesome.
and do.
Did you send that police station any photos?
No, it's a good idea though. I should.
Right. That's funny. And then the chief comes in. It's like, what is this? Who authorized this?
Right, exactly. But it's the same thing. I get to work with people over and over again. So that first experience leads to another experience.
Yeah, and bands like that endure. You have the opportunity too because they're still around. It's. I'm sure you've taken some bands that maybe that first album did well or didn't do well, and then it never came back around. So it seems like you've shot a lot of. Maybe it's you. Maybe you're the magic touch. Young bands, get your first photograph by Timothy White, and you'll have a career.
Maybe that's all I should.
That's your on your card. I give careers. Now this guy's had a career forever, and I took 2 pictures of him just because they're both so cool, and I want to hear stories about him because what a character, James Brown.
This is so anticipated. I don't know what you're choosing. It's
I'm trying to bounce around genres too, so I don't just it's not all one or the other. But yeah, I saw this one. I was like, man, what was James Brown like?
I mean, the godfather of soul, right? So
right.
James Brown has had a really interesting life. There's a great book written on his life that you should read, and that's kind of tells the real story of who he is. But at this particular moment in his career, he had been arrested for supposedly possession of crack or meth or like something stupid, and like got a bag of drugs, and he was being chased by the police in his pickup truck. Go figure. In South Carolina, where he was living, and he got busted, and he ended up going to jail. And so I was hired by Rolling Stone to go interview him because he felt he was railroaded in this police chase, and they shot bullet riddled his car trying to stop him. Who knows the real story of what really went on, but there is a story there. And anyway, he went into jail. So they hired me to go into prison to photograph him. Well, he was in like a prison camp. It wasn't like a jail. It was this prison in South Carolina. And I met with his lawyer, and they were like, they won't let you come in with all these cameras and stuff. So, but they don't search me going in. They're going to search you. I was like, okay. So I took a camera apart and I put those pieces in his attaché case, in the lawyer's attaché case. And for some reason, I don't really quite remember it. For some reason, we managed to smuggle this shit in, and I had in my socks and I got into prison to photograph James Brown. So we went in, we did the shoot, and he was like so grateful because he thought that this story for Rolling Stone was going to help get him reprieved, And so he was really gracious, and he walks into a conference room, and he's wearing he's all done up like James Brown, like from his cell into this conference room that he's brought into. And we got to do these pictures. So little fast forward, 6 months later, 8 months later, whatever it was, he gets released from prison. Not having anything to do with us or the article or the pictures, but Rolling Stone sends me back to pick him up at prison. I rent a limousine. pick him up, and this is the way he came out of jail, with this ascot and the gloves with the fingers cut off and the whole thing. And he was so cool. And of course, I was such a huge fan. And he said, here, let me show you around. Let me take you around. So he took me down to Augusta, GA, where he kind of started, which isn't far from where the prison was in South Carolina. And we're driving around town, and people are coming out of there. I mean, it was a poor community, and people are coming out of their homes and going, James, and really responding to him. And he really responded to them. Sorry for this long roundabout, but this guy happened to be an early trumpet player, like in his first band, and lived in the shack. And James came out, and we started doing pictures of the two of them together. And it was really a really important moment for him too. I think he was very moved by his experience and what he had just coming out of prison and then coming into this part of his life.
Right. That's wild. Yeah, I was wondering who that was in the background. Yeah, that's a wild story. I just thought it was a cool picture. I had no idea that all preceded it. So I'm glad I pulled that one. There's another one we have of which is
same day. There's the limousine on the right.
Gotcha.
So you're not far away, and we're just walking around. James and I just walking around this neighborhood, and he's just going, oh yeah, I grew up over here, and so over here. This is the house, my first house I grew up in with my mom, and then this guy comes out of the porch and goes, James, it's me. And then that connection. I mean, for me to live this career that way, to just be a part of something that I know was important. So it becomes part of James Brown's legacy, but it's really become part of my legacy because I've built such a large volume of work.
No, that's great. And speaking of legacy, the next picture, I don't know anyone on the planet that doesn't know who this is and the story behind where this guy came from. And I feel like you connect to his band three ways that I know of. Maybe it's more, but I know of three for sure. And it's the Beatles, and it's Sir Paul. And I know that I don't know, but I'm almost positive Ringo Starr. And now I see you photograph Paul McCartney, and I'm 100% sure John Lennon's son, Julian. So that's a lot of connections to the freaking Beatles.
Yeah.
I mean, most people maybe saw a concert if they were lucky, if they're of a certain age. You met all these people involved and in the Beatles. That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, sort of life trajectory too. I said earlier on, I grew up in a certain period where I was the youngest sibling of a family that went, my older sister went through, the Beatle craze and them, the British invasion of them coming to the United States and all of that. So I'm 9 years old, listening to my sister's records of the Beatles with a tennis racket with a friend, and we're each playing a different Beatle and pretending who we are as a little boy listening to this music. And then fast forward, I get to photograph John and Paul and Ringo. I'd never photographed George, and then becoming friends with Julian and Sean, and photographing them as well, and Yoko. And it sort of, it kind of became this thing that was a part of my life, and still is. That particular photograph was a Rolling Stone cover, and it was Paul on tour, and they wanted me to get Paul on the road because he was doing this big album. And so I spent a week following Paul, and we were in Chicago, and he was doing like 5 nights or 4 nights in Chicago. And so every day we hung out, and being around Paul McCartney was like being around with the president, the security, the whole thing. Like, he doesn't move and you don't know what's going on. He doesn't move without the security, positioning it somehow so he can make his move. And so I was like, I got to get this shot. It's the stories about Paul McCartney on the road. I got to get him like out on the road. So my idea is, I can shoot freely every night at the concert and in the hotel and do whatever with him. I can hang with him and get that, but I got to get him out on the road. And they were like, yeah, we'll do it. We'll get it. Just like be ready every day when we go to the venue for sound check. Just be ready to go, and we'll do it on the way. 4 days in a row, I got my crew. We're sitting in a van outside the freaking hotel waiting for him, and they won't tell you when he's leaving either for the venue. And so we're waiting, and it's like it's Chicago, and it's the winter. It's 30 degrees. Just sitting in the car at the edge of my every single day, and every day we'd get to follow them when they finally left on the way to the venue, and they'd go, "Nah, we can't do it today." And so I'd photograph all night, sound check, and then all night doing the concert and backstage and get all this great stuff, but I didn't get the cover. And for me to get Paul McCartney on the cover of Rolling Stone, because even though they were sending me out on a cover shoot, I wasn't guaranteed to get the cover unless I got the pictures. And to me, that was the title of the story, basically. That was the gist of it. So I had to get them on the road. So I'd spent 4 or 5 days doing it, and they were like, nah, not today, not today, not today. Finally, the last day, they were on their way to the airport to go to Toronto for the next show. And so they would follow us on the way to the airport. We'll stop and we'll do it. Get to a red light. Security runs out of his car back to my car and goes, we don't have time. We got to get on the plane. I was like, fuck. They were like, but you can get on the plane with us and come to Toronto if you want. Not your assistants, not all the equipment, just you, and we'll get it in Toronto. So we get back in the car and we drive into the back of the private airport, and I'm stuffing film in my pockets again and filters and whatever I got to do to get on the plane. Right. And all of a sudden, we got to go. And we pull up and they go, come on. And I get on the plane. I leave my assistants. In fact, we had the next cover of Rolling Stone was to shoot Billy Joel in Boston like 2 days later. And I said, I'll meet you in Boston. And I jump on the plane. I don't know what I'm doing. And I get on this plane to Toronto, and the door closes, and it's me, Paul, and Linda on the plane. And I just got amazing pictures of them, and had dinner and sat around. I mean, it was kind of special for me. And then got to a hotel, and it's like 2 a.m, and I'm in Toronto calling like everybody I know from high school. Like I just flew with Paul McCartney, and then the next morning they call me up and they go, "You ready? Let's go." And I got in the car with them, and we came up a ramp on a highway in Toronto, and they said, "Where?" And I said, "Now, pull out." Pulled out, cut my camera, threw up a light real quick, did a whole bunch of pictures like really fast, and they went, "You got it?" And I was like, "Yep." And they left me on the side of the road, and they took off, and I found my way back to the airport, and then met my assistants in Boston. So it really wasn't what I expected it to be, but I got Paul McCartney on the side of the road, and it did make the cover.
That's amazing. That is crazy. And plus the bonus time of flying to Toronto with Paul and Linda and all that good stuff.
Yeah. And really, it was a special kind of thing to experience, and the pictures for the article as well. Right. It's really interesting. That's a prime example of the archive, the body of work. Like I spent a week with him shooting everything, them holding up their, visas in Toronto, them getting off the plane, the plane being searched, us having dinner together, not to mention backstage, the concert photos, everything. But Rolling Stone picks one picture for the inside, for the cover, and 2 pictures for the inside from what I did. And that's the story. And so there's hundreds and hundreds of frames that no one's ever seen. That are just part of my life's work. It's really cool.
Yeah. It sounds like you have a book of B-sides waiting to be put out there. Or maybe a couple volumes. Now another legend from not far from where Paul comes from and didn't get to the U.S. much after Paul was the Stones, and you have a couple with Keith Richards that are pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Now when I presume is that 8-Ball on purpose to send the message, or does that just happen to be there?
It was on the table, but I'm sure I put it into the frame,
Right.
Now I look at it, it looks a little contrived, I could probably retouch it out if I wanted to, but that's no, I'm sure I moved it over into the frame.
Right. When this 80s?
Yeah, probably, late 80s, maybe 90. Yeah, somewhere there. Again, they're all, memorable experiences. It's the way I work, which is I don't plan too much. I kind of just say, let's meet here. And I know I can make pictures anywhere.
Right.
And it was just too easy, because Keith is easy. And it was like, meet me at this bar at 2 p.m. in Tribeca. And he shows up, and there's nobody in the bar but us. And we're playing pool and hanging out and having a drink and do some pictures in there. And then it was getting to be towards magic hour. I'm on the west side of Manhattan, and I'm like, okay, I've got this inside. Now let's go outside and let me get you walking around the streets, up against the wall, textures, again, variety. The more variety I get, the more opportunity I have to do something great. And we're walking down the street with my assistants, and we're carrying cameras and whatever, and we're walking, talking. And all of a sudden, this police car pulls up, screeches on its brakes, like, holy shit, it's Keith Richards. And they're like, oh, would you sign my violation book? Would you like give me a
oh, that's hilarious.
All that. And I go, okay, guys, like I'm losing my light. We're walking to the Hudson River. We're trying to get the end of the day light here. Like, I got to go. Okay, we did this and it's fun. And I'm taking pictures of it and all that. And 2 police cars showed up. Everybody wanted autographs. So it became this moment. And then one of the officers was a female officer, and she said, "Oh, too bad you got to run. I've actually got a Rolling Stones T-shirt underneath my vest." And I'm like, "Okay, let's do that." So she unbuttons her uniform and opens up her vest, and sure enough, she's got a Rolling Stones T-shirt. And I got this photograph of Keith like signing her T-shirt.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And then took off. I said, "Okay, we got to go." And we start walking, and as we walked away, Keith was like, it's just hysterical. Like, I could do that anywhere and have freedom. I probably had blow in my pocket, but it didn't matter.
Right. That's hilarious. Yeah, we have. I don't know if this is the same day, but there's another Keith as well.
Yeah, that's walking to the river. So that's like the last shot, right? That's the west side in Manhattan.
Got you. Yeah, man. What fun. Now, I obviously I could download every single picture you took and hear stories all day, but we have one last one. And I feel like you put your magic, I'll shoot your band early and give you a career and longevity with my Timothy White magic. Cause this looks like early for this band. Sunset Strip, Guns N' Roses.
Yeah. You picked all my like early stuff from the late 80s. This is 1988. Rolling Stone calls me and says, we want to shoot this band. And this was random notes. So it was a little picture. It hadn't happened yet. People were talking about them. There was a buzz, but it hadn't happened yet.
Right.
And I'm a young photographer with Rolling Stone at that point. So it was like any opportunity, but it was definitely a smaller picture in their random notes section at the time. And I just had been driving by this liquor store on Cahuenga and Santa Monica Boulevard for years, and it was always the colors, this neon sign and the street light, and there's something about it, colorful. And so I dragged them there. And actually, I had an old car too. I had a '61 Cadillac at the time, and I did a lot of pictures with them around the corner. But this is the shot that ran in Rolling Stone. And then 6 months later, Appetite for Destruction broke, and it went friggin' huge. And
right.
Rolling Stone called me back to do their first Rolling Stone cover, and that was a whole different session that I did on the East Coast. But so this was their first picture in Rolling Stone, and within the same year, which is kind of rare. I mean, it really, for me, especially for a photographer too, to be called back like within 6 months, and then did their first Rolling Stone cover.
That's amazing. Yeah, I figured that was early. I didn't realize that was their first Rolling Stone picture. That's wild. So yeah, so really, it is the. I think you should patent that, the Timothy White touch, where you can just anoint a young band career.
Are they still on tour? They've been on tour for years. I mean, talk about.
Yeah, I mean, once they got back together, I feel like they just never got off the road. They just kept touring and touring and touring and touring. And even didn't he break his leg or Axl and he just sang from a throne on stage?
Yeah.
It's awesome.
I mean, anywhere you go in the world, you see, actually, 2 pictures of mine that you see anywhere. And I've seen them in Thailand. I've seen it in China. I've seen it and everywhere in the world. Guns N' Roses T-shirts,
right.
And my Home Alone movie poster.
Oh, you shot that?
Yeah, I just see it everywhere. Yeah, I've shot a lot of movie posters, but that was, I've done Home Alone.
I know.
I've used the 2 of them during COVID, because I shot both Home Alone and Groundhog Day. So they both sort of applied to isolation during COVID. But
right. Oh, that's amazing that you shot that. That's awesome. How did that come about? Was that something that I guess he did that in the movie and that's why they wanted to shoot that? Or did it go the other way around?
I've shot a lot of movie posters. That's like the majority of my career, was shooting advertising for films. And, they give me a script, they give me concepts, they give me ideas. There's certain things in the movie that stand out, but we don't know really what we're doing, and we're not really matching a comp per se. But
Gotcha.
That was something that he did in the movie, and it ended up being this, iconic image. That
Right. That's awesome. Yeah, you really You really pick them. Look, man, like I said, I would love to sit here all day and talk about every picture you ever took. So maybe we'll have to do Timothy White Part 2. But it's good to see you virtually. I know it's been at least a year since I've seen you in live in person. So I'm glad you're doing well. And I really do appreciate you coming on Rock on the Rocks and sharing some amazing stories.
Thank you for having me. I hope it worked out.
Yeah, it's great. You rock. Thanks for tuning in to Rock on the Rocks. Be well, be kind, rock on.